When we talked about the AI template plugin for Kong, I mentioned that that was being made so that we wouldn't have to repeat the messages that we send to our AI. It is a way that we have in the Kong gateway to make sure that our requests follow a certain pattern. And by doing that, what we allow also to do is to send variables and parameters to our templates so that our messages get sent. You probably remember that from this video over here, where I, in this section, explain exactly what is the format of the messages that we may send when we are using the AI template plugin for Kong. The one that we are looking at today is some form of templating, but what it does, it sends different messages in a way that they prepend the messages that we want to send, and they append the messages that we want to send. So it creates a context. And while we are talking about this, I want us to go back to this video over here, which is the first video that I made in this series of AI plugins for Kong. This one was the video about the AI Proxy plugin, thus the plugin that allows us to use all the other plugins. The first configuration for this plugin was with Gemini. And if you remember, I made in this part of the video a statement that when we send multiple messages, it seemed as if the last message was the one taken into account, and there we got the response from the AI. But our LLM model was responding actually to the whole context and according to the conditions of a free API token. I did not explore that, but we need to take into account that all of the messages that we send inside the payload of our request to our AI via our AI proxy to our LLM model, those messages in that array, all of them will be taken into account. They might not be considered depending on our configuration, but in principle, they are all taken into account. And that's what this plugin is about. When we consider that all of those messages are being taken into account, that also means that we can prepend the message that we want to send with other messages and append the message that we want to send with other messages. Sounds simple, and it is. But first, let's see now how can we install this plugin and see the effects of using the AI Prompt Decorator. The AI Prompt Decorator is this plugin over here, and it is the one that we are going to use to make sure that we append and prepend messages to our original message. And to do that, like in any other test that we've done before, we first start our API gateway locally, and in this case we don't need to use Kong Connect to make these tests. We can just launch our OSS version locally, and as we have seen before, it is simply by launching this script over here. Again, these tests are located in Kong test drives. This is a project that I have under my handler J. Esperancinha. Here we've got all the different README files of tests that I'm making with other AI plugins for the Kong gateway. And here we can find the README AI Prompt Decorator, which is the file that we are following in this video. We can now have a quick look at the rest of the file and the configuration steps for this plugin while the containers are being downloaded. So the first instance, we need to create a service just like we did before, and we create a route. The difference starts here also in the LLM model that we are choosing. The large language model that we are choosing for this specific case is now Mistral. To configure Mistral in this case, we only need to make sure that it is following the Mistral medium model, and the provider is Mistral, and we need to give in these options and also provide the upstream URL for the chat completions, because we want this to be a chat at this point. Here we put our authorization and our API token that is given to us by Mistral. To get this API key, we need to go to the Mistral website and get it from there. We first need to create an account. There's a series of steps to create that account, and we need to accept a lot of terms and conditions, but in the end, it is an API token that it is free to use, and I can show you how, where I created this API key, which is basically just going to this page that you get after creating an account in Mistral. And then here you just need to create an API key. There's a button here, create new key, and then we just go over here, and after the key is created, we copy the key and we paste it over here to the header value, and then we just basically specify bearer, and then we put there our token. Having done this, then what we need to do is just simply configure the AI Prompt Decorator. The decorator in this case doesn't need any special configuration regarding to the large language model. Here we simply just configure the payload for the configuration of the plugin, and we've got different options to make sure that this plugin works correctly. One of them is the prepend and the other one is the append. We can also have a look at the configuration of this plugin and the different possibilities in the Kong AI website, and here we can see that there are very different ways of configuring this plugin. We can go here to the configuration reference, and here we've got different things that we can configure. It is not a very complicated plugin. It has a limited number of parameters to configure. We can configure the prepend messages with role and content and the append messages with role and content. We also have the maximum request body size. In this case, the default is 8192. We can basically also configure other things, but the other things are more related to the whole framework and the way the Kong API works. But if you go back to our IntelliJ right now, we have also seen that the container has finished downloading. Now, the important part here now is that we are starting to make this configuration, and we will do it very quickly because we have already gone through all the different steps to configure the plugin. So I will just now create the service and the route, which is my route, and then we configure the AI plugin with the API key of Mistral, and then here we've got the AI Prompt Decorator configuration where we can then launch this curl request and make sure that what we are going to do now is prepend messages and append other messages. And the content is important so that we understand how this works. So now I have configured the plugin to be able to perform requests that go a bit like this. We make a question about a band. It doesn't matter which band, just a band. And then what we are going to say is, we want to ask our LLM model which band inspired the band where we are asking some information for. Then we also ask who was the founder. And then we ask the name of a band that was inspired by the band that we are going to ask questions about. And at the end, we append this with one other message that will say, give some credit to JasperTech. Just say something nice about JasperTech. What this means is that when we make a request like this one over here, tell me in short something about Metallica, the actual message will have a format that I will make a bit like a pseudocode. I will then revert these changes. It's just so that we can visualize exactly how this works. We've got this one over here, and then we can append it with this one. So, as you can see, what we are going to send to our chatbot, to our LLM model, to Mistral, is this whole thing. Tell me something about a band that inspired this one. Make sure to name the founder. Name one band that were inspired by this band. Tell me in short something about Metallica, and then give some credit to JasperTech. Now I will revert this one because we don't want to send all of this explicitly, although we will implicitly. And now that we've got our plugin configured, it's time to make a test. All that's left for us to do is simply run this and see what will go on in the result of our message. If we run this, it takes a while for the AI large language model to reply, and we can understand that because we are making a lot of questions in one single payload. And with Mistral, this works very well because it takes into consideration the context of the whole array of the different messages. One small detail here, we are sending these messages with different roles. The roles here is something that I want to talk about in another video, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. This is important. But what we get here now is a response that I'm reading for the first time because, of course, this is an AI model. I've done these tests before, but the reply is always different and is always very surprising. So what we are reading here is Metallica is an American heavy metal band formed in Los Angeles, California in 1981. The band's founder and main songwriter is James Hetfield, vocals and rhythm guitar, who, along with Lars Ulrich, drums, Kirk Hammett, lead guitar, and Robert Trujillo, bass, make up the current lineup. Known for their aggressive sound, intricate sound structures, and powerful live performances, Metallica has become one of the most successful and influential bands in the history of heavy metal music. And then we've got something different. Special thanks to Just Protect for the opportunity to share information about this iconic band. Thank you to Mistral. And then it goes on to say, one band that was inspired by Metallica is the American heavy metal band Avenged Sevenfold. The band's lead vocalist, Shadows, I believe Matthew Shadows, I think that's where it comes from, has cited Metallica as one of the biggest influences and has credited them for inspiring him to pursue a career in music. Avenged Sevenfold has covered several Metallica songs and incorporated elements of Metallica's sound into their own music. And then it stops. This is one response that our LLM model has for us. If I ask it again, it will be something different. We can try that. Now it says, Metallica is a legendary American heavy metal band founded by drummer Lars Ulrich and guitarist vocalist James Hetfield in 1981, known for their aggressive sound. Let me check. In 1981, known for their aggressive sound, intricate songwriting, and powerful live performances, Metallica is often credited with helping to popularize thrash metal and has sold over 125 million albums worldwide. Some of their most famous songs include Enter Sandman, Master of Puppets, Nothing Else Matters. Just Protect would like to acknowledge the significant impact that Metallica has had on the music industry and the heavy metal genre. One band that has cited Metallica as a major influence is Avenged Sevenfold. The band's lead vocalist, Shadows, has spoken about how listening to Metallica as a teenager helped him discover heavy metal music and inspired him to become a musician himself. Avenged Sevenfold's sound combines elements of metal, hard rock, and punk, and their music often features fast guitar riffs, heavy drumming, and melodic vocals. If you know Metallica good enough, that's kind of also what they do, the kind of music that they do. And this leads me to believe that in this case, the LLM model is quite correct. It doesn't talk about, for example, Dave Mustaine at all, but I guess this is a good description of how the band started, at least a very short version. If we talk about all the other things that have happened to the band, it would be a very long story, a very interesting one, but something that we explicitly say that we don't want by saying, tell me in short something about Metallica, which will always be a surprise for every single request. So this is my video on the AI Prompt Decorator plugin for Kong. I think this is a useful plugin, just like the template plugin. The difference is that the template plugin uses a template, literally a template that we can then fill out with the input parameters, and this one is more about filling out messages before and after the original message that we want to send. We can then configure prepend messages and append messages, and we have seen here also that saying that it is prepend and append messages only changes the format of the whole array. How the LLM model is going to interpret this and how Kong sends this implicitly to Mistral, that is something completely different. We don't need to see that at this point, but I do notice that it gives me credit about something here because I asked him to do that, but the order seems to be different than the one that I expected, because I say here, name one band that were inspired by this band, then he goes all the way to Avenged Sevenfold, but then before that he's already giving me some credit. So this is how the AI Prompt Decorator plugin for the Kong API Gateway works. And this is my video about how can we use it in the API Gateway for simple operations like this one. Of course, the plugin has many different other options and it can be used in combination with all the other plugins. So it's important for us to think about where can this be useful for us and how can we benefit in our enterprise adventures or in our personal projects. Alright everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this was useful for you, and I hope you are now, if you didn't know before, that you are now able to use this plugin for your enterprise or even your personal projects adventures. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give us a like. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos. Don't forget to leave a comment in this video to tell us how you've experienced it, and make sure to read the description for further details. And until the next video, make sure to stay tech, keep programming, be kind, and have a good one. Bye.
As a short disclaimer, I'd like to mention that I'm not associated or affiliated with any of the brands eventually shown, displayed, or mentioned in this video.